about the Great Pyramid at Giza, just standing there looking at it. It feels almost impossible, doesn't it?
It really does. But, it didn't just spring up overnight.
Right. It's the end result of, well, centuries of trial and error, incredible ingenuity.
Exactly. We're talking about the very origins of monumental building, how a whole culture figured out how to shape stone, shape the earth on just a massive scale.
So that's our mission today, really, digging into the sources. We want to take a deep dive into those first few pharaohs of unified Egypt and how they revolutionized using stone.
Yeah, we're tracing that line from the earliest carvings right up to the Great Pyramid itself.
Looking at rulers like Narmer, who kind of laid the groundwork,
And then Djoser, with his huge leap forward with the step pyramid.
and Sneferu, the great experimenter.
Right, refining things. And then, of course, Khufu, Khafre, Menkaure, the Giza builders.
So it's a journey through geology, incredible engineering, and just staggering amounts of human effort.
That's it, turning rock into something that felt eternal.
Okay, so where do we start? Setting the scene, I guess.
Well, to really grasp the scale of what they did, you have to go back to the unification of Egypt itself. Around 3100 BC.
Often linked to Narmer, right?
That's the tradition, yes. And this unification, it was absolutely fundamental. Because it established, permanent kingship, but more importantly, a centralized state.
And the sources show stoneworking even back then, like right at the start.
Yes, the very beginnings are there. You see hints in early records, things like commemorative palettes, and also in the design of the early elite tombs, the mastabas.
Ah, the mastabas. They weren't full stone yet, were they?
No, not usually. Mostly mud brick, but they're key. They represent that transition. Because they started incorporating stone elements. They'd often face the mud brick core with dressed stone that's been cut smooth.
Okay.
Still pretty modest compared to later stuff, but it shows the ambition and the developing skills. They're the direct ancestors of the pyramids.
And they quickly figured out which stones worked best.
Seems like it. The sources really talk about two main types. First, there's the local limestone.
Easy to get.
Relatively, yeah. Quarries nearby, softer stone, easier to cut and shape. That was the workhorse material, for the main structure, the casing.
But then there was the other one, granite.
Granite, yes. Totally different beast. Had to come all the way from Aswan, way down south.
Much harder.
Incredibly dense, very durable. And because it was so much harder to quarry, harder to transport, they used it more selectively.
For the important bits.
Exactly. Things like statues, sarcophagi, maybe lining key chambers, entranceways, things that needed to last or make a statement.
And, it feels obvious, but none of this, even the early stuff, let alone the pyramids, would have happened without that strong state Narmer helped establish.
Oh, absolutely not. The building on that scale needs huge logistical organization. You need to manage big workforces, control the quarries, figure out transport, feed everyone. That kind of resource mobilization, only possible after unification gave them that central control.
Okay, so unification sets the stage. Then comes this game-changing moment. We jump forward, a few centuries? Third dynasty, maybe 2670 BC?
Around then, yeah. Pharaoh Djoser, and the name everyone remembers alongside him, Imhotep.
The architect.
Vizier, architect, possibly physician, a real figure. He's credited with planning Djoser's whole complex at Saqqara, and the main part, the step pyramid. Well, that wasn't just an advance. It basically invented grand-scale stone architecture.
It was totally new. The sources really stress its importance.
Oh, hugely significant. It wasn't just the biggest thing made of stone up to that point. It was the world's first monumental building made entirely of stone.
Wow.
A complete break from the mud brick tradition, a massive statement.
So how on earth did they quarry and shape stone for something that big back then?
They were mostly using that local limestone we talked about. And the tools. Well, pretty simple, really. Copper chisels, stone chisels too, wooden mallets, wedges to split the rock.
So they'd hack out rough blocks.
Pretty much. Get a rough block out of the quarry face. Then the work really began.
Shaping it.
Yeah, dressing it, leveling the surfaces. They used things like grindstones, polishing stones to get the blocks smooth enough to fit together properly.
Okay, cutting it is one thing.
Yeah.
But these blocks weighed tons, right? How do you move them from the quarry, get them to Saqqara, and then lift them?
Transport and logistics. Massive job, thousands of people involved. The sources suggest they slid the stones on big wooden sleds.
Sleds, okay.
And there's that fascinating theory, with good evidence now, that they wetted the sand right in front of the sleds.
wet sand. You'd think that makes it harder, but it firms it up, doesn't it? Reduces friction.
Exactly. It binds the sand, makes it much easier to slide something heavy over it, drastically cuts down the effort needed.
Clever.
Very. They also use ropes, livers, brute force, and for the longer haul, like getting limestone from the Torah quarries across the river.
The Nile.
The Nile was key. Maybe even purpose-built canals to get the stone closer to the site.
So the stones arrive at Saqqara. How do they actually build up?
Ramps. Huge ramps made of earth, rubble, maybe some stone, built up alongside the pyramid. As the pyramid got higher, the ramps got longer or higher.
So they just haul the blocks up the ramps.
That's the idea. And getting the foundation perfectly level was critical too. They had clever ways to do that, like digging trenches, filling them with water, and marking the level.
Using water levels.
Yeah.
That's smart engineering for, what, 4,600 years?
What really is impressive, and the pyramid itself, structurally, it's basically like nesting boxes, a series of mastaba shapes, one stacked on top of the other, getting smaller as they go up, all made with those carefully cut stone blocks.
A completely new form.
Built with unprecedented organization.
So Djoser and Imhotep basically showed, look, we can do this. We can build monuments out of stone. Who took that and ran with it?
That would be Pharaoh Sneferu. He followed Djoser, beginning the 4th dynasty, maybe around 2610 BC. Sneferu is famous as a builder, sure, but also as an experimenter.
He didn't just copy Djoser.
Yeah. No, he pushed things. Tried different ways to make pyramids bigger, more stable, trying to get those smooth sides.
Experimentation implies problems. Things going wrong.
Oh, definitely. He used similar basic methods for quarrying and transport, but the sources suggest he refined things. Surveying got better, the way they dressed the blocks became more precise, and they likely played around with different ramp designs.
Ramps are still debated, aren't they? Straight ones, wraparound ones.
Big debate. Straight, zigzag, spiral. We don't know for sure which type, or maybe they used different types for different stages. They were clearly figuring it out.
And his pyramids kind of tell that story.
They really do. He built 3 major ones, and they're like a textbook case in learning by doing. First, there's the one at Maitum. It started as a step pyramid, then they tried to convert it to a true pyramid, but it partially collapsed. A clear transitional failure, you could say.
Ouch.
Then there's the famous bent pyramid at Dashur.
The one that changes angle halfway up.
Exactly. They started it really steep, must have realized partway through, this isn't stable, and had to change to a much shallower angle to finish it.
You can literally see them solving the problem in stone.
You really can. And then, finally, he got it right with the red pyramid, also at Dashur. It's called red because of the reddish limestone. That's considered the first successful, large, smooth-sided, true pyramid.
The result of all that trial and error. Did he also change up the materials or the finish?
Yes, definitely a step up in quality. With Sneferu, we see the introduction of that really fine, highly polished Tura limestone for the outer casing. This wasn't just structural stone, it was meant to gleam.
How'd they get it so smooth?
Precision cutting, for sure. They used copper saws, but the key was using sand as an abrasive.
The sand does the cutting, not the copper itself.
Right. The copper just holds and moves the abrasive sand. And inside the pyramids, Sneferu started using more of that tough Aswan granite, especially for important things like burial chambers or those massive stone plugs, portcullises, meant to block passages.
So Sneferu's work kind of set the standard, the blueprint, for the classic pyramid.
You could say that. His experiments, even the failures, taught them so much. Smooth casing stones, using granite strategically inside, better ramp techniques. These became the norms for the next generation.
Which brings us inevitably to the big one, Pharaoh Khufu, around 2580 BC, the Great Pyramid at Giza. The sources really paint this as the absolute pinnacle.
It's the culmination, absolutely. And what's amazing is we actually have some direct evidence about the logistics, not just theories. The Diary of Mirror.
The Diary of Mir, tell us about that. That sounds incredible.
It is. It's this set of papyrus fragments found relatively recently. It's basically a logbook kept by an official, Mirror, during Khufu's reign.
A logbook?
Yeah.
From 4,500 years ago?
Yeah. It details the day-to-day work of his crew. Specifically, it records them shipping Tura limestone from the quarries across the Nile to the Giza pyramid site.
Wow, what kind of details?
Things like calendar dates, how often the crews rotated, even targets for how many blocks they needed to deliver each day. It's real, concrete proof of the incredible organization, the meticulous tracking of resources.
That level of admin is mind-blowing. What about moving the truly massive blocks for the Great Pyramid? Some were what, 60 tons or even more?
Yeah, enormous weights. They were still using sledges, ropes, and almost certainly that damp sand technique to reduce friction. The scale was just much, much bigger than before.
And the workforce. Who were these people?
Huge numbers. We're talking tens of thousands. But the picture we get from the sources isn't really about slaves being whipped, like in the movies.
No.
It looks more like a highly organized national project. Skilled workers, quarrymen, tool makers, engineers, alongside vast crews of laborers. These laborers worked in teams, maybe 20 to 40 men, just to haul one block.
And they needed support.
A whole infrastructure.
Yeah.
Huge bakeries, breweries, beer was safer than water, and part of the rations, even medical facilities. We found evidence of workers getting pretty sophisticated treatment for injuries, even surgery. Wow.
And they seem to have worked in shifts, maybe 3-month rotations. This suggests a well-managed system, not just random forced labor. They also use things like wooden rollers, levers, and of course, the ramps.
What about the tools for cutting, especially that hard granite?
The basic kit was still copper chisels, stone hammers, wooden mallets using abrasives. But for granite, yeah, they needed more.
Like what?
They used these incredibly hard stone pounders made of dolerite to basically bash and chip away at the granite surface, slowly shaping it.
Brute force, but controlled.
And for cutting straight lines or drilling holes, they used copper saws and tube drills. Again, always with sand as the abrasive, plus that clever trick with wooden wedges.
Remind me.
Drive wooden wedges into cracks or drilled holes, soak them with water. The wood swells with immense force and splits the stone. Simple materials, ingenious application.
Incredible. And getting those blocks placed so precisely on the pyramid itself? Still debated in detail, but complex ramp systems are the most likely answer. Maybe straight ramps for the lower parts, spiral ramps higher up. Some theories even propose internal ramps or shafts. But what's undeniable is their surveying skill.
How accurate are we talking?
Astonishingly accurate. The base of the Great Pyramid is almost perfectly level, likely using those water-filled trenches. The sides are aligned to true north with incredible precision, off by just tiny fractions of a degree.
How did they do that?
Using tools like cubit rods for measurement, plumb lines for verticality, knotted ropes for angles, and probably careful astronomical observation for alignment. It required serious math and skywatching skills.
It's amazing with those tools.
And they used mortar, too, mostly gypsum-based, but probably not like modern cement to bind the stones strongly. More likely to fill small gaps, help level blocks, and stabilize the rubble core inside the casing.
So Khufu builds the ultimate pyramid. But Giza wasn't done, was it?
No, the story continues on the plateau. The next two major builders mentioned in the sources are Khufu's successors, his son Khafre, and then his grandson Menkaure.
Were they innovating still or following the plan?
Mostly consolidating, perfecting the established techniques. They weren't reinventing the wheel, but building on what Sneferu and Khufu had achieved.
Continuing the tradition.
Exactly. Khafre's pyramid, the second largest at Giza, is really impressive. It still has some of its original polished limestone casing near the top, which gives you an idea of how they all looked originally, and it has extensive granite work inside its associated temples.
And Menkaure.
His is the smallest of the three Giza pyramids, but it's notable because he used a lot of that expensive Aswan granite, not just inside, but for the lower courses of the exterior casing. A different look, a different statement, perhaps.
So those three Giza pyramids together really show the evolution reaching its peak.
They absolutely do. Djusur cracked the code, Sneferu refined it through painful trial and error, Khufu took it to the absolute limit of scale and precision, and then Khafre and Menkaure cemented those achievements. That became the gold standard for the Old Kingdom.
Okay, let's pull back a bit. Thinking about all the tools and methods we've discussed.
Yeah, it's quite a toolkit when you list it out. Stone hammers, chisels, then copper tools becoming key. Mallets, those heavy dolerite pounders for the hard stuff. Copper saws and drills needing sand to work. Wet wooden wedges splitting rock.
Sledges, maybe rollers, damp sand, ropes, levers, sophisticated ramps, very precise survey tools like water levels and plumb lines.
Right, and mortar, rubble cores, it's a whole system.
But like you said earlier, it's way more than just engineering. It speaks volumes about the state itself.
Absolutely. Building these things was maybe the ultimate expression of the pharaoh's power. It showed their ability to organize and control resources on an unprecedented scale.
And the sheer number of people involved.
Tens of thousands. But organized. Specialized teams working in rotation, fed, housed, even getting medical care. It shows a complex, managed society.
And the logistics underpinning it all. like Mirror's diary showed.
Exactly. Getting the right stone from the right quarry, sometimes hundreds of miles away, down the river, to the site, keeping track of it all, that requires serious administrative muscle. And we know the state controlled those quarries directly. Inscriptions confirm it.
So it was literally statecraft set in stone.
That's a good way to put it. These weren't just tombs. They were powerful symbols of centralized authority, divine kingship, and the ability to command nature and labor.
So if we were to summarize the legacy, the blueprint these early pharaohs created.
Well, Djoser's step pyramid was the breakthrough, the proof of concept. Showed monumental stone building was possible and how to organize for it.
Then Sneferu comes along and figures out the kinks.
Through hard-won experience, yeah. He achieves stability, the smooth sides, refines the finish, uses granite more effectively. He makes the true pyramid viable.
Khufu then takes that perfected model and just maximizes it.
To the absolute extreme. Unmatched scale, precision, logistical mastery. The Great Pyramid is the ultimate application of everything they'd learned.
And Khafre and Menkaure kind of lock it in.
They consolidate those methods, build their own impressive monuments using the established techniques, creating that iconic Giza landscape we still see today. They represent the mature phase of this Old Kingdom tradition.
So stone, for them, was so much more than just rock.
Oh, profoundly more. It was ideological, building with stone, something seemingly eternal on that scale, aligned with the stars, using precise mathematics. It was about making kingship permanent, connecting the pharaoh to the cosmos, imposing divine order on the landscape.
Wow. This deep dive really paints a picture of, well, just sheer brilliance and unbelievable ambition from these rulers and their workers.
It really does. Thinking about them sourcing limestone here, granite from way down there, using simple copper tools with sand, figuring out sleds and ramps and boats. It's an incredible story of innovation.
They weren't just building tombs, they were like carving their worldview into the planet.
And you see that clear progression, don't you? From Narmer's first steps, the early mastabas, Djoser's huge leap, Sneferu's crucial learning curve, right up to the almost unbelievable precision and scale under Khufu, each one built on the last.
And yet, even with everything we've learned from the sources pieced together, there are still questions, aren't there?
Oh, absolutely. Researchers are still debating ramp designs, tool usage specifics, workforce numbers. We're always learning more.
The how, basically.
Yeah.
How exactly did they manage that level of precision with what they had? That question never really goes away.
It doesn't. But maybe there's an even deeper question hinted at in all this effort. The why. Why pour such unbelievable resources, generations of effort into these structures? What did they truly believe they were achieving about eternity, about order, about their place in the universe that made this not just possible, but essential?
What did these mountains of stone truly mean to them? That's something to think about.